What's on, guys? JHoyt back with you today. Once again, I'm not actually talking in the webcam there. I'm talking after the fact because this was from my live stream. Link in the description below. I'm actually going live right after this video goes out. So we're going to be playing some Fortnite with Ben afterwards. But we're here to talk about CDL Paris, as this past weekend was this event. A lot of kind of surprising things came out of this, and wow, I was close on a lot of these matchups, but then some of them I'm like, oh, maybe there will be an upset here, or maybe this team will win. Yeah, that didn't happen. So let's get into our first matchup, which was the Florida Mutineers against the hometown team, the Paris Legion. And for like the 5th time this year, the hometown team loses their first match. And then we'll get to the second part of that one, but they don't last very long in this tournament. But Florida wins this one 3-0. Kind of no surprise. I mean, Florida is kind of solidified themselves as a top 5 team in the game, if not top 4 team, I would say. So they're looking really good recently. Obviously, the change with Awakening definitely helped them, it seems like. But also, it is online, so we never know how that's going to transition to LAN. But we'll move on to our second matchup with the Dallas Empire and the London Royal Ravens. This one was a close matchup, but Dallas comes away in the game 5, moving them on to the semifinals. I think it's the quarterfinals versus the Florida Mutineers, which is our next matchup. So that involves, obviously, Florida and Dallas. Now, this one, I predicted that Dallas was going to come away with this one. I actually had Dallas end up winning this event, but they fall to Florida in this one. Florida wins this one 3-1 in the game 4. Kind of surprising, but, Dallas still has a chance to come back into this one. But we have to catch up on the knockout matches, which we have the battle of the European teams. We're going to have London and Paris. This time, like I hinted at before, Paris double first rounded. Florida did it. Who else did? I don't remember who else did it now, but Florida definitely did it. Paris now has done it, and it definitely wasn't, those only 2 teams. But London moves on to that second knockout match versus the Dallas Empire, where they get 3-0'd. I don't know if this was a close one or not, but they get 3-0'd, knocks them out of the tournament, which moves Florida and Dallas to the semifinals. Down in Group B, though, we got 2 more teams that need to make it to the semifinals to complete those. First matchup features the New York Subliners versus Optic Gaming Los Angeles. And this one, New York, I mean, they are a solid team, don't get me wrong, but sometimes they just don't show up. But in this one, they do. They beat Optic Gaming LA, and they move on to the second round in that game 4. Our second matchup, which most people, I think I did, predicted 3-0, maybe 3-1. This one, Atlanta-Toronto, goes game 5. Huh? When did Toronto actually, start playing well? Right? They swap out Classic, they put in Kleenex, and now they're a decent team, I guess? I don't really know, but they take them to the game 5, but Atlanta does win this one, moving them on to the second round, which features New York and Atlanta. Once again, Atlanta goes to a game 5 versus the New York Subliners. I mean, what is Atlanta doing with this whole game 5 thing? They just want to keep it interesting or what? But Atlanta does win this one, moving them on to the semifinals. But we need one more team, which means we got to catch up on the losers bracket, which features the Los Angeles Optic Gaming and the Toronto Ultra.
I gotta have more help.
Now, usually when I'd say this matchup, I'd predict, pretty close match. Maybe Optic Gaming would, come away with this one. Maybe game 4, whatever. Optic Gaming got steamrolled. And I mean steamrolled. I think they are the only team in this CDL this year to join the 50-point club in Hardpoint. They got destroyed. And I don't mean, they just lost by a big margin. They got destroyed. Like, they put in their, like, grandkids, and which they probably none of them have, but they got destroyed. Like, the people were not shooting back, and
I can't even tell where that thing
yikes.
stopped.
That's all. That's really all I gotta say about that one. Is just yikes. But Toronto moves on. Congratulations to them. They played well. I mean, they were just literally just out shooting them. Maybe it was a host issue. Not exactly sure. But Toronto moves on to face off against the New York Subliners after losing to FaZe. New York continues that run, beating Toronto, moving them on to the semifinals. We're now in the semis. We're going to have the Florida Mutineers versus the New York Subliners, and then we're going to have Atlanta FaZe versus the Dallas Empire. Now, myself, I predicted that Atlanta and Dallas were going to be in that grand final. However, Dallas ends up losing their matchup versus Florida, which would have had, the correct outcome for my predictions. But they match up here in the semifinals as the second matchup. I guess we'll cover it first anyway. But Atlanta FaZe takes another Game 5. I don't know what their stat is going towards Game 5s, if they're just super good at them or what. But they win, right? Moving Atlanta to the grand finals versus the winner of the New York Subliners and the Florida Mutineers. This one, another Game 5. This time, Florida wins this one. So Florida on a good spree here, right? They just took out Dallas. They beat Paris.
Oh, Molly, we gotta
now they're beating New York.
Coming up, by the way.
Let's get to the grand finals where we have another matchup of Florida and Atlanta in the grand finals. But this one wasn't as close as people may have hoped. Florida came away with the 3-0. I don't think Atlanta has been 3-0 all year. I have no facts to back up that statement.
God, I also love Reddit for that.
I feel like they haven't. I mean, they're just such a good team. But again, online is crazy, and literally anything can happen online. Like, you can turn a lot of players into gods just because of online, especially where they live. Connection, like, they can just run around like idiots and just play like online pubs kids. But this event was, I don't want to say pretty straightforward, but a lot of teams are starting to show what they actually are. I mean, Florida has been improving. You got Paris continue to fall.
Oh, I read that.
Toronto's looking better. Optic Gaming still is like a questionable team because one event they'll make it to the grand finals, the next one they'll get double first rounded, and you just never know what they're going to come out with. So, I mean, I do want to make a power rankings video because I think this one would be really interesting. Because I honestly feel by the end of the year that Paris and Seattle will be the bottom two teams in the league. LA might improve a little bit. They might beat Paris and Seattle more. And then you have teams like New York, Optic Gaming, Toronto, London, and Minnesota all fighting for that those middle spots because the top four is kind of been solidified at this point. I mean, not officially numbers wise, but
why did I just
Atlanta, Florida, Chicago, and Dallas have all won the only events this year. Right? Florida's now the first team with 3. Atlanta has 2. Chicago has 2. Dallas has 2. So, at this point, I mean, it's been crazy. And I don't really know where this season's going to go and what's going to happen towards Champs time.
If it would just let me grab it the first time, I would have
Champs is going to be a crazy event, especially once we get to it. And that's going to be a huge, and I mean huge video for me. And I want to spend my time looking back at head-to-heads. The big thing, is it going to be on LAN? Because if it's not going to be on LAN, it's going to be the flukiest event ever, especially with this game. So, I'm not really sure what that is going to be. Looking at the standings post-Paris here, in first place, you still have Atlanta FaZe with 230 CDL points. In second place now, you have the Florida Mutineers. So they did a massive jump there. Then we have tied for third place. We're going to have the Chicago Huntsmen and the Dallas Empire. tied at 190 CDL points. At 5th place, you still have Minnesota, which I feel like they just have not moved in forever. But they sit at 120 CDL points. In 6th place, you're going to have the London Royal Ravens at 90 points. Over in 7th place, you have the New York Subliners at 80 CDL points. 8th place, you're going to have Optic Gaming Los Angeles at 70 CDL points. Paris in 9th place at 60 points.
Let's just say we found
Toronto, Seattle, and the Los Angeles Guerrillas all tied for top 10, or I should say tied for 10th with 50 CDL points. But, you know, who do I think could move up, if anyone? Right? Because, I mean, Minnesota and London, New York, Optic, and Toronto. Those 5 teams could fight for that 5 through 9 spot the rest of the year. And I would not be surprised. But as far as the top 4 goes, it looks like those 4 are going to consistently be there. And most of these teams, I believe, only play in the final 2 out of the 4 events. I'm not sure if this was one of them or not. But they only play out of 2 out of the 4. So you could have some movement. You could not. They could stick in the same 4. But obviously, you want to get those top 2 seeds, so you can kind of play as little matches as possible, especially with such a fluky game as Modern Warfare is. So we got a lot to look forward to. We got champs coming up. But our next event, we're actually heading to New York July 10th through 12th because Paris was this past weekend. But yeah, July 10th through 12th, New York Subliners homestand. I'm not sure who's actually playing there, but we'll recap it and preview it and predict it all when it comes time, so stay tuned for that. But for now, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up here. If you did enjoy, hit the like button down below if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, and as always, guys, we'll see you next time.